Fruits basket. Tohru's encounter with the Sohma family. Tohru Honda was no stranger to misfortune, having lost both her parents at a young age and being forced to navigate the harsh reality of life on her own. The world had never been kind to her, but somehow, Tohru remained resilient. She had always been optimistic, holding onto the belief that kindness could heal any wound. However, after her mother's untimely death, her life began to spiral. With no family to rely on, Tohru found herself living in a small tent, trying her best to maintain the facade of normalcy. But fate, as it often does, had different plans for her. One fateful day, while on her way to school, she encountered a strange sight. A young man and a rather mischievous-looking boy engaged in a heated argument. These two strangers, Yuki Sohma and Kyo Sohma, would change her life forever. Tohru had no idea that these seemingly ordinary boys harbored a secret that would draw her deeper into the mysterious world of the Sohma family, a family cursed by the animals of the Chinese zodiac. As Tohru tried to help them, she found herself invited into their home, a beautiful but eerie estate nestled away from the world. It wasn't long before she discovered the truth about the Sohma family. They were cursed, doomed to transform into animals of the zodiac whenever embraced by someone of the opposite gender. Despite the strange circumstances, Tohru's innate kindness and unwavering optimism began to soften the hearts of the Sohmas. Yuki, the handsome and aloof prince of their school, remained distant, hiding his insecurities behind a cool exterior. Kyo, the fiery and impulsive cat of the zodiac, was initially hostile and rejected her attempts to help him. But through her gentle persistence, Tohru began to chip away at the walls they had built around themselves. As the days passed, Tohru became a part of the Sohma household, offering both emotional and physical support to Yuki, Kyo, and their enigmatic guardian, Shigeru Sohma. Yet, despite her growing bond with them, Tohru could not shake the feeling that there was something more to their curse. A darker, more painful truth that the family was hiding. The bonds between the Sohmas and Tohru. The Sohma family was an enigma, rich, powerful, and yet fundamentally broken. As Tohru spent more time with them, she learned that the curse wasn't just a quirky family trait. It was a curse that had shaped every member's life in devastating ways. Yuki, despite his outward appearance of perfection, was trapped in a cage of loneliness and fear. His life had been controlled by his overbearing and manipulative mother, who had forced him to grow up too quickly, all the while projecting her own unresolved traumas onto him. Then there was Kyo, the so-called cat, cursed to forever live in the shadow of the other animals of the zodiac. The cat was never included in the sacred circle, and this exclusion weighed heavily on him. His anger, his resentment, his bitterness were all deeply rooted in the cruel treatment he had endured, not only from the world but from his own family. Kyo lashed out at everyone, especially Tohru, convinced that his existence could never bring happiness to anyone. Yet Tohru saw past his anger. She saw the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. Shigeru, the family's guardian and a man with a mysterious past, was equally fascinating. His playful and often mischievous nature concealed a deep sadness, the legacy of his role within the family and the burden he carried as the dog of the zodiac. He, too, was bound by the curse, though his acceptance of it seemed more resigned than the others. Tohru's presence in the Sohma household was like a breath of fresh air. Her unwavering optimism, her ability to see the good in people, and her genuine care for their well-being slowly began to break the chains that bound each of them. Tohru's open heart was the key to unlocking the complex emotions hidden within the Sohma family. She didn't treat them as cursed beings. She treated them as individuals, each with their own dreams, hopes, and fears. But the more Tohru uncovered, the more she realized how deeply the curse had affected the family's psyche. It wasn't just the physical transformations that caused pain. It was the psychological toll of living in isolation, of being misunderstood and rejected by society. The family was fractured, each member struggling with their own personal demons. Through Tohru's kindness, however, a glimmer of hope began to form. She was the first person to truly show them unconditional love and acceptance, and as they grew closer, they started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to break the curse. the secrets of the Sohma family and the struggles within. As Tohru continued to live with the Sohma family, the emotional complexities of their lives unfolded before her. She learned of Akito, the head of the family, whose domineering presence cast a shadow over everyone. Akito, the god of the zodiac, was a cruel and manipulative figure who held the family members in an iron grip. His control over the family was absolute, and his jealousy and fear of losing his power were the driving forces behind the cruelty he inflicted on his relatives. Akito's reign of terror affected each member of the Sohma family in different ways. Yuki, for all his outward calm, had suffered deeply under Akito's manipulative tactics. Akito had used Yuki as a tool to fulfill his own desires, isolating him from others and forcing him to become someone he wasn't. Yuki, in turn, had internalized these wounds, believing he was destined to be a mere puppet. Kyo, too, had a history with Akito, one that was steeped in bitterness and resentment. The cat was often the target of Akito's cruelty, and the rejection he felt from the family ran deep. Kyo believed that he would never be accepted by the Sohmas, no matter how hard he tried. But Tohru, with her gentle words and heartfelt understanding, began to show Kyo that his worth wasn't tied to the curse or his rejection by others. Yet, the deeper Tohru delved into the Sohma family's secrets, the more she realized how much they were all tied to the curse and to Akito's manipulation. She learned of the twisted relationship between Akito and the other family members, how Akito's fear of being abandoned had caused irreparable damage. She also uncovered the tragic history of the curse, how it had all begun, and how each member of the family had been affected differently by it. But it wasn't just the Sohma family that was struggling. Tohru, too, had her own issues to face. Her mother's death had left a deep scar on her heart, and while she had been able to put on a brave face, the weight of her own grief was starting to take its toll. Tohru had always believed that if she could just help others, she would find her own healing. But the deeper she became entangled in the Sohma family's world, the more she realized that she, too, needed to confront her own pain, breaking the curse and finding freedom. The breaking of the curse, when it finally came, was not a single moment of triumph but a gradual, painful process of self-discovery and healing. Tohru, with her unyielding love and compassion, became the catalyst for change. She showed the Sohmas that they were not defined by the curse, that they could choose their own path and find happiness beyond the chains that had bound them. It was through Tohru's understanding of the curse and her ability to forgive, both others and herself, that the Sohma family began to heal. Each member faced their own trials, but with Tohru by their side, they learned to confront their pasts, to break free from the cycles of fear and control that had held them captive for so long. Kyo, in particular, underwent a profound transformation. He had spent so much of his life believing that he was unworthy of love, but with Tohru's encouragement, he learned to accept himself, flaws and all. The curse that had defined his life for so long was finally broken, not by force, but through the power of acceptance and love. In the end, the Sohma family, freed from the curse, found new beginnings. Tohru's presence had changed them all, and though their journey was far from over, they now had the strength to face the future together. Tohru, too, found healing. Through her time with the Sohmas, she discovered that love was not just about giving, it was also about receiving. She learned that it was okay to lean on others, to allow herself to be vulnerable. And as the Sohmas began to find their own paths to happiness, so too did Tohru, finally free from the pain of her past and ready to embrace the future with hope in her heart. Say I love you. The reluctant girl and the popular boy. Mei Tachibana had never been the type to seek attention. In fact, she preferred to avoid it entirely. After a painful betrayal by her childhood friends, Mei learned early in life that opening herself to others could lead to heartbreak. As a result, she built walls around herself, preferring the company of a single, quiet life rather than the complicated and often painful dynamics of friendship or romance. She kept to herself, attending school quietly, never participating in social events, and certainly never expecting any emotional connection to form. Her life was perfectly predictable, until one day a seemingly insignificant incident threw her into the unpredictable realm of high school relationships. Mei's world collided with Yamato Kurosawa, the the most popular boy at her school, and everything she thought she knew about trust, vulnerability, and love was called into question. It all began when Mei accidentally slapped Yamato in a moment of panic. She was standing by herself, minding her business, when Yamato, in an attempt to diffuse some tension, spoke to her in a way that made her feel embarrassed and awkward. Mei's reaction, quick and involuntary, was to slap him across the face. It wasn't something she had planned, but in that split second, it felt like the only thing she could do. What Mei didn't expect, though, was that Yamato would take it in stride, laughing it off and showing no sign of anger. Instead of holding a grudge, Yamato, whose charm was well known to everyone, found himself intrigued by Mei. Her aloofness, her clear disinterest in being part of the social spectacle that he was accustomed to, caught his attention. For the first time in a long while, Yamato found someone who didn't fawn over him. It was something new, something different, something that awakened a curiosity in him. But Mei wasn't interested. She wasn't like the other girls who threw themselves at him. In fact, she barely even spoke to him unless absolutely necessary. Yet Yamato didn't let this deter him. He began to pursue Mei, though not in the conventional sense. He didn't try to impress her with his popularity or charm. Instead, he tried to understand her. He took the time to show her kindness and patience, even when she kept pushing him away. Mei couldn't comprehend why someone like Yamato would be so interested in someone like her, especially given her history of being hurt and rejected. As the weeks passed, their relationship began to evolve, albeit slowly. Yamato's persistence started to break down some of Mei's defenses. She found herself reluctantly acknowledging the care and attention he offered, even if she didn't quite know how to process it. The boy who had once seemed so distant, so untouchable, was now a constant presence in her life, and she couldn't ignore him. A journey of self-discovery and trust. The more Mei interacted with Yamato, the more she began to unravel the layers of her own heart. What started as a chance encounter turned into a series of unexpected moments, each of which forced Mei to confront her own fears, insecurities, and ultimately, her reluctance to trust others. She had been hurt before, and the idea of opening herself to someone else, especially someone as popular and charming as Yamato, seemed like an invitation for more pain. But as her relationship with him deepened, Mei began to question the barriers she had so carefully constructed around herself. For the first time in a long time, Mei felt seen. Yamato didn't treat her like the others. He didn't care about her appearance or her social status. He simply saw her for who she was, a quiet, reserved girl who had been hurt and was trying to protect herself from future pain. Yamato's sincerity began to chip away at Mei's defenses, and she started to realize that maybe, just maybe, it was possible to trust again. However, trust was not something Mei could give away easily. Her relationship with Yamato was complicated, filled with doubt and hesitation. Mei found herself constantly second-guessing his intentions, wondering if his feelings for her were real or just another game for him to play. After all, he was the popular boy, the one everyone admired, and she was just Mei, ordinary, unremarkable, and used to being overlooked. Mei's internal conflict reached its peak when she realized that Yamato had begun to show her affection in ways that were both comforting and unsettling. His gentle gestures, helping her with schoolwork, walking her home, calling her to check in, were gestures of care, but to Mei, they felt like foreign territory. She was unsure how to respond, unsure of how to express her own feelings. Yet, despite her hesitation, Mei couldn't deny the warmth that bloomed in her chest when she was around him. Meanwhile, Yamato, ever patient and understanding, continued to offer Mei the space she needed to come to terms with her own emotions. He didn't push her for a response, didn't demand anything of her. Instead, he simply remained a steady presence in her life, letting Mei take the lead when she was ready. His actions spoke volumes, and for the first time, Mei found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about love and vulnerability. The struggles of love and the pain of vulnerability. As Mei began to open up to Yamato, the delicate walls she had spent so many years building began to crack. But vulnerability, as it often does, brought with it pain and uncertainty. Mei's newfound connection with Yamato was not without its challenges. Her fears of rejection, her deep-seated insecurities, and her past experiences with betrayal all came rushing to the surface. Every time Mei allowed herself to get closer to Yamato, she was confronted by the fear that he, too, would one day leave her, just like everyone else had. Complicating things further was the jealousy Mei felt when she saw other girls who were beautiful, confident, and outgoing, expressing interest in Yamato. Mei's feelings of inadequacy intensified as she wondered what Yamato could possibly see in someone like her. She started to doubt her worth, questioning whether she was good enough for him or whether he was simply playing around with her emotions. Yet, despite her inner turmoil, Mei couldn't push Yamato away. His constant support, his unwavering presence, and his gentle insistence on being by her side helped her begin to heal from the scars of her past. As Mei slowly allowed herself to trust Yamato, she also began to open up to the idea that love wasn't something that could be controlled or predicted. Love, like trust, required vulnerability, something Mei was still learning to embrace. However, their relationship wasn't without its bumps. Mei's journey of self-discovery and healing was not linear, and there were times when she would retreat into her shell, unsure of what to do next. But each time she pulled away, Yamato was there to patiently wait for her, to remind her that love was not about perfection, but about accepting each other's flaws and growing together. Love, acceptance, and moving forward. Through all the trials, misunderstandings, and fears, Mei and Yamato's bond grew stronger. Mei, who had once been so closed off, began to embrace the idea of love, not as a source of pain, but as a source of growth and understanding. She learned that love didn't require perfection, and that she didn't have to be flawless to be worthy of it. Yamato, in turn, learned that love was not about possession, but about mutual respect and support. He had to learn to give Mei the space she needed, even if it meant waiting for her to come to terms with her own feelings. In the end, Mei and Yamato found a balance between their differences, learning to love each other not in spite of their flaws, but because of them. Their relationship was not one of fairy tale perfection, but one of understanding, acceptance, and growth. As Mei took her first steps toward truly trusting Yamato and embracing the vulnerability that came with love, she found herself becoming the person she had always longed to be, someone who could love and be loved in return. And with Yamato by her side, Mei realized that, despite all the fears and uncertainties, love was worth the risk. The walls she had built around herself, brick by brick, were finally coming down, and in their place stood a new Mei, a Mei who was open to love, to connection, and to the beautiful uncertainty of what the future might hold.